Hello and assalamu alaikum to all my dear audience and especially to my students wherever they are around the corner in the world. I would just like to say thank you so much for giving me such a pleasant feedback upon my first lecture. And I'm quite surprised that people do ask me to do something more about that lecture, and they had noticed a lot of things from that lecture. Today's lecture is basically a sequel of the first lecture now because people had pointed out some of the things which they are actually wanted me to elaborate in a more sophisticated way. So today's lecture is about the theory of suicide by Emile Durkheim, which I had introduced in the development of sociology earlier in the previous lecture. It is really interesting. It is really interesting. It is not a very common phenomena. It is some of the very specific social phenomena which we do understand in our societies. So I would like to elaborate the introduction of the theory of suicide by Emile Durkheim, some of the elements which actually give us information about the commission of the suicide and some of the types of suicide, which Nimal Durkheim had actually elaborated. So, uh, it's basically suicide. What we do know about the suicide, it's not a generally kind of phenomena. It is basically one of the most private and personal act which a person actually do in his life or her life during any life course. It is one of those acts which a person or a group of people intends to take their lives unnaturally. Let me tell you that it's not a physical death. It's not a physical kind of action that people do for taking up their lives. It's an unnatural way. It's an unnatural kind of phenomena that people do to take their lives. It's been from right from the beginning of human conception, not a kind of contemporary phenomena, not a kind of traditional phenomena, but as soon as the inceptions of the society been taken place over the period of time, this phenomena was taken place. So as a sociologist, Durkheim was not actually concerned about why any specific individual committed suicide because he believed so that it was the basic duty or responsibility of the psychologist to do so, that they may go in depth to explore the reasons behind the commission of a suicide. Rather, he was interested actually in differences in the rates of commission of suicides over time and in different cultures and in different societies. He believed so that it's not a kind of job that sociologists must do the find out the reasons or the causes of suicide. Rather, they must have to go with some of the differences in the rates of the commission of suicide, and these rates must be different in different areas, in different societies, in different communities, even in different tribes, even in different societies or in different states, and over the time may not be equal in all the times. Over the times they may be different in different societies. So psychological or biological factors may explain why a particular individual in a group commits suicide. Psychological or biological factors can only explain that why is the question that being addressed by the uh, psychological researchers or the biological researchers to go towards the reason behind the commission of a suicide. But sociologists do something else. Sociologists will not, never go towards the reasons, will never go towards the question of why this person had actually committed suicide. But what Durkheim assumed that only social facts could explain why one group had a higher rate of suicide than did another. Durkheim was quite interested in basically those social facts which could explain why some of the people had a higher rate of suicide than in another. because it was the time when capitalism was going arises and arises in different European and American societies, as well as societies were in the evolution phase again. So rates of suicides were again into a kind of phenomena which were noticed by the sociologists, especially the imitation theory, which we would discuss later, was also an example of that actually. So Durkheim believed that the differences would be the consequence of variations in sociological factors, and in particular, these are the social currents. Differences basically will be like that in Durkheim's opinion. Basically, he was of the viewpoint that differences in the rates of suicides were just because of the variations in the sociological factors. And some of these sociological factors, in particular, are the social currents. These are the social triggers. These are the social instigations which actually stimulate a person to take a decision about commission of a suicide. Social currents may be different in different people, in different societies, and in different communities over the time. Individuals may have reasons to commit suicide, but these reasons are not the real cause. Now, this is quite important. There are reasons behind the commission of suicides, but those reasons may not be termed as the real causes of the suicides. So, what else we could say those reasons? They may be said to indicate the individual's weak points. These are some of the points, these are some of the triggers which may lead towards taking a decision of commission of suicide, where the outside currents bearing the impulse of self-destructions may find it like this to induce a person towards the commission of suicide. So, social currents may instigate a person to take a decision whether to take his or her life or not, and they may will vary in their intensity over the time. Sometimes they may be much higher and more destructive in sometimes, and sometimes they may not be over there. Like I had discussed earlier, imitation in Durkheim's view can only be acceptable in some of the individualistic cases of suicides. Now, imitation theory was basically about like imitation theory of suicide was basically about the individualistic act of the commission of suicide by a person, and it was purely been based upon the concept that an individual may commit suicide just to copy another person. A person who had committed suicide earlier, may a person get frantic because of that commission of suicide, and he or she may would take the same action. So Durkheim opposed that theory because he believed so that it is not like ever that differences in the rates of suicide can be traced due to the differences in the social facts at different levels. As soon as the rates of the differences in social facts may get rise, the rates of the suicide may also will get rise. So these are some of the phenomena which give rise the collective sentiments of different groups that produce different social currents, and these social currents will affect the decision of suicides. In every society there are some collective sentiments. People are so close and so attached to those social collective sentiments, and ultimately they will give rise some currents in the minds, in the nature, in the behaviors of the people of that specific society. So those social currents will actually decide about the decision of suicide in any specific individual or in any specific society. And if we would say that, in other words, changes in the collective sentiments may lead to the change in social currents, and which in turn lead to the change in other things like that. So, So till now we had came to a conclusion that suicide is not because of only the psychological reasons behind its commission. Rather, there are certain social facts or triggers or instigations or social currents which actually give rise higher or lower rates of suicides. So there are certain elements or certain social facts of suicide which needs to be understood in order to understand the rates of suicide or the reasons or the causes of suicides behind its commissions over different times. So I would like to elaborate some of the elements of suicide which can either be said as the social facts. Behind the commission of suicide, there are two underlying social facts. Durkheim had taken very deep and intense or comprehensive research, sociological research about suicide, and he came to understand that there are two underlying social facts or social currents which actually may give rise the phenomena of suicide in different people or may get it lower down in different societies. So these are integration and regulation. So what is integration now? Integration is basically refers to the strength of attachment we have to the society. In other words, it is basically a cohesion, it is basically a social bonding, it is basically an attachment which we do have in our society, and it's not a kind of phenomenon that could only be attached to the society, but it can be a purpose, it can be a cause, it can be a reason with which people do attach or integrate very highly, or may some of the times they do not have some of the intimations or integration in any of the way towards the society or those causes. So regulation then refers to the degree of external constraints on people in the society. These are some of the things i- through which we are being regulated by the system of the society, by the people of the society, by the social structure of the society. Well, let me tell you that in the next lecture I would elaborate social structure of the society as well. So this is a kind of systematic way to regularize people, like students being regularized by the teacher, by the institutes, like in the family we are being regularized by the head of the family. These are some of the external constraints which are we supposed to follow while being living in the society. So regulations may be another factor, maybe another social fact, maybe another social current that may boost or that may decrease the decision of suicide in any of the person or in any of the people. The two social currents are continuous variables. These two are the continuous variables basically, and suicide rates go up when either of these currents is too low or too high. In any of the change in these two currents, the rates of the suicide will obviously be disturbed. So, on the basis of these two social currents, suicide is being divided into four different types. Both of them have equal typology of suicide. Integration on the basis suicide on the basis of integration being typified into egoistic suicide and altruistic suicide, whereas on the basis of regulation, anomic and fatalistic suicides being categorized in the categories of suicide. So till now we can understand that suicide is not a general phenomena, it is a very personal and individualistic phenomena that may not only be triggered, that may not only be instigated by the psychological reasons, but due to some of the sociological reasons as well, the social facts as well, the social currents as well. On the basis of some very deep insights of the society and the previous cases of suicide, Emile Durkheim came to a conclusion that integration and regulations are the two social facts which can give rise suicide in different times. On the basis of integration, suicide can be categorized into egoistic or altruistic suicide, whereas on the basis of regulation, The suicide can be categorized into anomic or fatalistic suicide. Now, these are very interesting phenomena, but for today's lecture, I would just sum up till now. In the very next lecture, I would inshallah will give you information about the types of suicide. Now these are very interesting. These are very interesting, and you people will just be very surprised upon some of the social phenomena that how they could are very closer to the nature of the society, the nature of the people. So thank you so much. And if till now you people have any question, kindly comment me in the comment box, and this lecture will be continued in the next hopefully lecture. Till now, thank you so much for having this lecture, to listen this lecture, and I would request you again to please subscribe this channel so that I can continue with the same pace and with the same zeal. Thank you.